Critics of British Prime Minister Boris Johnson have called his decision to suspend Parliament a coup against democracy. Now some members of his Conservative Party are in open revolt to prevent the UK from crashing out of the EU without a deal.
There's a group of Conservatives who feel very strongly that now is a time when we have to put the national interest ahead of any threats to us personally or to our career.
The party, of which I've been a member now for 47 years, is going off the rails very, very quickly.
The debate has shaken financial markets, sending the pound to its lowest level against the dollar in 3 years. The volatility is expected to get worse. Conservatives have lost their majority in Parliament with the defection of Philip Lee to the pro-EU Liberal Democrats. He was part of a camp of Tory rebels who sided with the opposition to take control of Parliament's agenda. Their goal is to push for legislation to move Brexit from October to January if there's no withdrawal agreement in place.
The attack on our democracy in order to force through a disastrous no-deal Brexit is unprecedented, anti-democratic and unconstitutional.
The government wants to revise the current Brexit deal to remove the so-called Irish backstop. That's the provision to preserve the invisible border between the Republic of Ireland, which is an EU member, and Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK. According to Brussels, the UK has not presented any viable alternatives. Johnson says his main priority is to deliver Brexit on time.
Everyone can see that this government is utterly determined to leave the EU on October the 31st, come what may, without a deal if necessary.
If Brexit is delayed, lawmakers expect Johnson to call early elections. He's hoping voters will give him a stronger mandate and a party free of defectors. Paolo Montecillo, TRT World.
Well, it has been a busy day in the House of Commons. So to break it all down for us, we're joined by Professor Patrick Minford from the Cardiff University Business School. Professor, thank you for your time. It all seems like today all we've really achieved is just intensifying this uncertainty around Brexit. How damaging have today's developments been?
Well, I don't think it's intensifying uncertainty. I think it's bringing it to a head, because what is now happening is that the parliamentary fighting is coming to a conclusion, and basically Mr. Johnson is going to go ahead with Brexit anyway, as he has said, and call an election if Parliament will not agree, which should resolve the uncertainty, because an election will finally put this whole thing to rest. That's the hope, I think, of everybody, that we want to see this thing done.
If the UK does go to another election in October, what would the market's reaction be to that sort of development? What do you think the business sector would say to that?
Well, I think that people will welcome the conclusion of the episode by something that nobody can argue with. I mean, an election is the final deciding action that the British people will take. If they back Boris Johnson, they will basically have come in behind what they gave as the referendum result 3 years ago, and that will bring the whole episode to a conclusion. But of course, if they do the other thing and don't back him, then this opens up the possibility that we won't leave the EU, which of course is a possible outcome of this election if the British people kind of back away from what Boris Johnson is proposing, which is to go ahead with the referendum result. So one way or the other, it's going to bring things to a conclusion, which I think will be welcomed by business, because the biggest problem for business has been they don't know what's going to happen, and they need to know in order to plan.
How much more difficult is Boris Johnson's job, though, going to be now that he's lost his majority in Parliament? How can he stand up as a strong leader when he doesn't even have the majority anymore?
Well, I think this has gone beyond Parliament. As you realise, the Parliament is a Remainer Parliament. It's never really been very keen on Brexit and has, one way or another, backed away from it and tried to block it. And that's what this vote is all about. It's not really about deferral. It's about blocking Brexit because the majority in Parliament are against Brexit effectively. So this is where the situation now is, that Parliament is trying to actually block the referendum result. And so this is something that Mr. Johnson is going to fight and to call an election over, and that will resolve the uncertainty. I think this is essentially what we have to see coming down the line.
Professor, we've already seen the pound fall to a 3-year low. Do you think today's developments will help or hinder the sterling?
Well, you've got to remember that sterling has got to deal with a balance of payments deficit on the UK current account, one way or the other. We have a deficit still on the balance of payments, which needs to be resolved. So I don't think sterling is going to rise anytime soon, and certainly, as you say, may well fall, because there's still a deficit. And then there's Brexit. So all these things have to be dealt with. And this can only really mean the pound going down further.
Professor Patrick Minford joining us from Cardiff. Thank you for your time.